Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. One more person trying to finish signing on, so I'm just going to give them another moment, and then we'll begin today's webinar. Okay. We have a lot of material to cover in the hour, so I'd like to begin. This is the Intermediate Report Designer Training Webinar, formerly known as Auto Tag, now Report Designer. Today is Wednesday, June 20th, 2018. My name is Eric Johnson, and I will be your Windward training facilitator today. I'm a technical support engineer here at Windward Studios. I've been here for a little over 6 months now. Maybe you've interacted with me through help desk. Well, welcome everybody. You may have noticed that when you logged into the GoToMeeting webinar, you have a toolbar. The arrow that you see on the screen is pointing to the raise your hand icon. So if anytime during the webinar you have a question or are experiencing technical difficulties, please feel free to click that button to ask your question or notify me of anything that's wrong. The prompts I have for questions and chat are on my other screen, so I may not see your question immediately. Usually I wait until the Q&A session at the end to answer questions, but I'll look now and again to see if anything has been raised. Again, this is the Intermediate Report Designer Training Webinar. We're assuming that you've built some templates. They could have been very simple templates that you've already installed Report Designer. You know how to use the tags, that you know how to connect to your data source. You know enough about Report Designer to get you started. And you may have joined us last week for the Basic Report Designer Training Webinar. To give you an idea of the kind of machine I'm working on today, I'm using Windows 10 operating system, which is 64-bit. I'm also using Office 2016, also 64-bit. And the version of Auto Tag or Report Designer that I'm using is 15.2.303.0. There was a release to 309 on Friday, but for this webinar today, I'm just going to be using 303. And you can always download the latest versions of Report Designer from our downloads webpage. Okay, I want to give you a high-level overview of what we'll be discussing today. I'll go over some advanced features for the ForEach tag. We'll discuss conditional formatting, covering 2 types of conditional formatting. One, where we're showing and hiding content using Report Designer tags, and a second type of conditional formatting that formats output based on conditions. We'll go over the equation editor, where I'll show you how to add the sum function to a template. We'll discuss the if and switch tags and what the differences are. I'll show you an example of the import tag. And of course, there's the Q&A session at the very end. So for the ForEach tag, let's review what it actually does. It does 3 things. First, it grabs a set of data, any set of data that you want to pull from your data source. Secondly, it loops through that set of data that you selected to work with. And third, it repeats all the elements between the beginning and ending ForEach tags. For today, I'll show you the importance of where to place those beginning and ending ForEach tags and show you the results of placing those tags in different ways. We'll also get into grouping data or nesting ForEach tags, and I'll show you how to group your data with nested ForEach tags. All right, we're now going to move away from the PowerPoint presentation for a little bit. I'm going to open up a blank Word document. Let me expand it so you see it a little better. All right, and we're going to focus on, we're going to start this webinar by looking at the samples. Click this samples button right here. And this is going to open up our Getting Started guide. We looked at this last week in the basic, and we're going to look at a couple more samples this week. So in here, in the samples template section, under the additional, there are these tag tutorials for SQL and XML. And again, any tags that are within, that you can utilize within a report designer, we have a tag for you. Today, we're going to be focusing on the tag tutorials for SQL. XML is the second greatest data source used, and JSON the third. We have XML tutorials, but we don't have the JSON ready just yet. So, okay, and we're going to focus now on the ForEach tag sample. I'm going to go ahead and open this. And this gives you step-by-step instructions on using the ForEach tag. We're going to focus on this first sample right here, this ForEach tag without a table. It is possible to use the ForEach tag without a table. Yes, it is, as you can see from this sample right here. And below this is a ForEach tag with a table, as you probably have seen before. So I want to point out a couple of things here. First thing is where you place the beginning and ending ForEach tags. And second, why the placement is important when you loop through your data. So before we do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and select this ForEach tag and preview it to see what data we're working with. So up here in the auto tag, I'll click preview. Okay. And so here we're returning everything from the category table. We've seen this in the beginner training. Okay, now what is the alt tag that's right next to this ForEach tag going to be returning? Let's go ahead and select that, preview. All right, and here we're just going to be pulling the category ID from the categories table. And that's all we'll be displaying in this alt tag. Now what's this second alt tag got to display? Select it, preview it. Okay, so this alt tag is just pulling the category names from the categories. And here, one name in the list is beverages. That will be the first name in the list. And then we have our end ForEach right below this line. Now let's show you what's the output going to look like. We'll go up here and click output. Split the screen. All right. So you'll notice we're just showing the category name, a dash, I'm sorry, category ID, a dash, and the category name in the output. And each one of these categories, beverages, condiments, confections, dairy products, are ending up on a different line. So how is this actually happening? Why is it inserted in the next record on the next line as opposed to right after the first one? I'm going to go back to the template. And the reason why it's doing separate lines for each record is because we added this end for each on the very next line after this last alt tag. So there's nothing after this alt tag right here, nothing at all, just white space. And then the end in for each tag on the next line. So you can see more closely what's happening. I'm going to go to the Home tab and turn on the Show Hide Formatting. All right, so right after this last alt tag is this paragraph marker. So we're providing a carriage return after this alt tag so we can add our end for each tag just below it. What if we took away this carriage return? Let's remove it and place the end for each tag right after this final alt tag. What will the output look like now? Let's close that. Let's go ahead and create another output so you can see. Split the screen again. Okay. Now the output looks very different. Here we have the 1, the category ID, a dash, and then beverages, and which is the category name. And right after beverages, there's not even a space. It starts the number 2, which is the next category ID, the hyphen, and then the next category name. So you can see in the template, after the alt tag is this end for each, telling Report Designer to go back and display the category ID and dash and category name and so on for each record. Then when it gets to the right margin, as it's displaying each record, it goes on to the next line. And it'll carry on for as many records as we have. And it will continue this across the page as well as down the page. So this is why it's lining up on the exact same line for each one of these categories, is because we removed that paragraph marker. That paragraph marker was an indicator that after the alt tag, perform a carriage return, then find the ending for each loop, which then starts it all over again. All right, let's go ahead and change this back. Let's close this output. So again, that was why it's important where you place your end for each tag. Everything between this for each tag and the end for each tag is being repeated each time it iterates through the for each loop. And we do have that paragraph marker right there. All right, before we move on, I'd like to point out the tag tree button to you in the auto tag tab over here in the data section. I'm gonna go ahead and click that. And over here on the right, it will open up the tag tree window. So this is very helpful, especially when you're reviewing templates that you haven't seen before. This lets you know all the tags that are in this template. So with the main story expanded, main story is the section where we list all the tags that are in the main part of the document. Now, if I had tags in the header or the footer of the document, these would be displayed differently outside the main story. you would actually see a header and footer section. But as there are no tags in the headers or footers, only in the main part of the document, we'll only see these tags listed in the main story. Okay, now to help you out when you're trying to locate a specific tag that's listed within this tag tree, you can double click on any one of these tags to go directly to where that tag is in the template. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this last ForEach tag, this customer loop tag. And when I do that, as you can see here, it moved me down to the very last tag in this template. Well, let's expand this a little more so I can discuss the layout of this with you. So what we see here, so there's an outer ForEach called this customers loop. And then there's another ForEach, an inner ForEach loop that's connected to this customer loop. So this is where we're going to talk about grouping. But there's also, let's start this over. There's this customer loop here, and then there's a company name tag. We have another ForEach loop, an out tag, and an end ForEach loop. This end ForEach tag is associated with this inner ForEach tag. And then we have another end ForEach tag, which is associated with this customer loop tab. Okay, now just beneath that, I just wanted to show you out how this is all laid out. Beneath this is our properties window right here. And you can use this to change any of the attributes for this tag. You can also use this to view the query that's related to this tag. So this is the same thing as opening the more advanced tag editor, what we'll see in a little while, but this just gives you a snapshot of what's happening with this tag and how you can change it if you need to write through this section. Okay, back to the sample. So what's going on here? We have this outer ForEach tag, this customer loop, and we want to group some data based on the company name. Let's go ahead and preview this customer loop to see what data we're returning, what we're working with. Okay, so it's just returning a few records, 4 records, customer ID and company name being returned within this outer customer ForEach loop. Okay. Next thing between this beginning and ending ForEach tag is this company name out tag. Let's go ahead and preview it to see what we're returning. And as it indicates, we're going to be displaying the company name. Okay, next we have another ForEach tag. This is our inner ForEach tag. Let's preview it to see what it's returning. So it's returning all of the order IDs that pertain to a specific customer ID. And it's also returning a whole bunch of other data. So let's say that you have a list of company names that you want to see all of their orders for as it goes through the list. This is exactly what we're doing here. We're getting a lot of data back, but we're only going to be displaying the company name. Now let's look at this alt tag, see what data it's returning. And this one is just going to be displaying the order ID, nothing else. Even though we were getting a lot of data from this ForEach tag, all we're going to be displaying is just the order ID. Okay, now let's just take a look at what this will look like on output. I'm going to go and click output, say yes to save it. I'm going to split the screen again. We don't need our tag tree open at this moment. I just wanted to show you that that is there, and it's a quick way to get the tags in the template. And also, you can use the tag tree to change properties. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Let's scroll all the way down to our example. All right, here's our grouping for each tag example that we've been talking about. So we have our loop in the template. And over here on the right, you can see the results. Here we have that number 1, the company name, and then all the orders that are associated with that company name. Then it repeats or iterates to the next company, and it displays all the orders for that company name. And it continues on down, finding the next company name, displaying its orders, and so forth, all through the rest of the data in the records. So let's go ahead and look at this number 1 right here in the list. See how it's repeating the number 1 for each company? This is where we're grouping the orders under specific company names. Let's take a closer look at this. I'm going to go ahead and close the output. So how do we tie this inner ForEach loop to this outer ForEach loop? So with this outer ForEach loop selected, I want to point out that this outer ForEach loop has a variable var name 10 associated with this. And this variable is just what Report Designer uses to identify this ForEach tag. So let's just keep var name 10 in mind for this customer's loop, the outer loop. So now let's go ahead and select this inner ForEach tag. And I'm going to go all up to here in the Auto Tag tab, and I'm going to click on this wizard button, which opens up the SQL wizard. I'm going to expand this a little, make sure we can see everything. All right, and this, as we're working with the inner ForEach, these are all of the columns that we're working with, all the data that we're pulling from the inner ForEach loop. We don't necessarily need this to talk about this section right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and minimize it. Okay, so what we're talking about is how to tie the inner ForEach tag to the outer ForEach tag. How is that done? Well, that is done through this filter section, which you can see has already been set up for you. Just wanted to expand that over there. So what we're doing is we're collecting the customer ID from the orders table, and we're setting that equal to the value of the var name 10 customer ID. And as you remember, var name 10 was just the variable name for this customer's loop. So here we're having all the orders with the customer ID that is equal to the var name 10 customer ID. And we can utilize the primary keys and connect that inner ForEach loop to our outer ForEach loop. And so this is how we can group nested ForEach tags. Now, if I go ahead and click on that var name 10 and then click on the drop down, I'm going to expand this. So this is the var name 10 ForEach loop with all the things that I can connect to. Here we're just connecting to the customer ID, and that's why we had that selected. But that is how you can select which values to connect to. But that is how we're connecting. We're using the primary keys from the primary customer ID keys from both the order table and the customer loop. And that's how we can group ForEach tags together. Now, over here on the right in the data preview pane, this is the first customer ID and all the orders that pertain to it. And that's how we have them grouped. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and generate the output again so we can see it one more time. Say yes to save. Split the screen and scroll down. Okay, I now want to explain what is actually happening when we generate the output with the engine. Each report designer has a small .NET engine built into it. So what happens is our engine completely strips out the data from your template, collects the data, and then rebuilds from scratch, from top down, everything that's in your template. So it shows the data that you wanted and displays it how you formatted it within your template. So what's happening here in this example, Report Designer collects all the data from this outer customer loop and all the data within this inner ForEach loop, ties it together, and when it produces the output, it says what's after this customer loop, and the first thing that it comes across is this numbered list and the company name. Then what does it do? It sees this inner ForEach loop, so it grabs that data and displays the out tag. It displays the out tag for the inner loop. It will do this for all the order IDs for this company name. It'll loop through showing everything between this inner beginning and ending ForEach loop. Then it will go on to the next line where it comes across this next ending ForEach loop, which then tells the engine to go back to the beginning outer ForEach loop and collect the next record. And then repeat the process. Iterate through the loop and repeat the process for every company name that's being listed and all their order IDs. So this just gives you an idea of how the engine is tearing down your template and rebuilding it from scratch after pulling all your data from your data source. So this is, again, how you group your data using nested ForEach loops. Okay. Next thing I'd like to go over before leaving this sample is on the page above. I see, before we go on, I do see someone's hand raised. Oh, I just see a question come across. I just want to make sure. Why does the numbered list keep showing as 1 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 4? Okay, let me just answer that question quickly. Let's go ahead and just create the output. And I'll give you a quick explanation of this, but if we want to explain a little more, I'll go in and discuss it at the end of the webinar. But it's only showing the 1, and that's only because we have it here as a static value. This number 1 right here, this isn't a tag of any sort. We're not actually pulling any ID. Okay, good, yeah. The earlier example, we were using this alt tag, and that's why the numbers changed. Okay, cool. All right, so we were about to talk about, so we've been creating ForEach tags using row-based formatting. We're now going to focus on how to create ForEach tags using column-based formatting. So the ForEach tag can be used for column major expansion. So there are 3 things that are different when you want to create columns instead of rows. This example above here with the table, this is typical when you're creating a row-based ForEach tag. So you'll see a ForEach tag within the table, and it's going to loop through displaying this alt tag data, this data, all these different alt tags for the first, last, and last name. And then the end ForEach tag is outside the table. This is typically what you want to do. But in this next example, the column-based, this end ForEach tag is inside the table. Let's preview the ForEach tag to see what data we're working with. Okay, yeah, that categories table, same 4 columns, category ID, category name, description, and picture. Okay, what is this alt tag next to it going to be displaying? Select it, preview, and so now we're just going to be displaying the category name, beverages, for an example. So instead of creating a list top down of the category names, we're going to create columns left to right across the page. Let's take a look to see what this output looks like. Generate the output, split the screen, and let's get down to our example. There it is. Okay. So instead of going top down, we're going left to right here, expanding the table, creating new columns as we go across for beverages, condiments, confections, and so on. Okay, one thing I want to point out is that normally when you place this end ForEach within the table, it should typically create a blank row here for you, the very end of the list. But we're not seeing that blank row in this output. Let me show you why that is. I'm going to close the output. So there's a couple of ways to edit a tag. You can either double click on the tag or up here, click on the edit tag button in this auto tag tab. So I'm going to go ahead and select this end ForEach tag. Then I'm going to click on this edit tag button. And this opens up our tag editor. Now this is, okay. So the end ForEach tag, the one that we're looking at, is really not used to query anything. It's just used to tell report designer when to stop looping through your data and repeating all the elements between the beginning and end for each tag. What I want to point out here, within the properties tag, there's this delete row attribute. And this attribute is currently set to true. So this will suppress the row on output. So it will suppress the last row. This is why we're not showing that last blank row. Now, if I was to turn this off just by double clicking it, saving this tag, let's see what the output's going to look like now. Let's go ahead and click it. Say yes to save. Let's split the screen. And now when I scroll down, here you go. And over here, you can see before we didn't have this blank row, but now we do. Just because we turn that property, the delete row property for this end for each tag to false. Okay, the last thing that you need to do is to change the property value for the ForEach tag to create columns instead of rows. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this. Oops, wrong one, sorry. I'm going to go ahead and double click on this ForEach tag to open up the tag editor. Now, this window, this tag editor is a bit more robust than what we saw earlier in the tag tree. Here we have a preview button that we can actually preview this query. So if I click this, you'll see that we're returning, getting all this information from the categories table. There's the wizard button, just like the button on the auto tag tab, which opens up the SQL wizard. There's an equation button, which I'll show you a little later, that adds an equation to the tag. Then there's these next and previous buttons, which take you to the respective tags without actually exiting the tag editor. Over here on the left, just like the data bin, we have all the tables, views, and stored procedures that we have access to. Now, this query window may look a little different on your system. Yours is probably white, and mine, I've changed the color. And to do that, all you would have to do is right-click within the window. There's this color scheme option, and I'm using dark. I'm using base 16 ocean dark. What is normal is this plain option. I just wanted to show you that you could change this. All right, let's go ahead and look at the properties tag. So this property tag has advanced properties, some standard properties, and some regular tag properties. And you may notice that within the tag property is this order attribute, and it's currently set to column. Now, if I click on this drop down, you'll see some different choices. We have legacy, row, and column. Legacy is what is used by default. Legacy isn't much different from row. It's just the original way that we built the tag. The row attribute does a little more. If you want to delete a row with the end for each, you'll have to use this option. In our wiki page, there is some more info on how legacy is different from row. But since we're expanding not by rows, but by columns, we'll want to have columns set for order. With column selected, I'll go ahead and click Save the tag. create the output. And with it set the way it is, that is what's producing this blank line. All right, let's go ahead and change this back. I'm going to go ahead and double click on this end for each. Go to the Properties tab and change this delete row back to true. Save it. Now, when we create output, we should not see that blank row. And it's gone again. All right, so 3 things when working on column major expansion. You want to first make sure that your ForEach tag is set to column. You'll want your end ForEach tag within the table. And you'll also want the delete row attribute of this end ForEach tag set to true. All right. Let's go back to our slides for a moment. Okay. All right. So we talked about the different ForEach types, legacy, row, and columns. And we talked about the delete row attribute, which deletes the row where the end ForEach tag is placed. Next is the equation editor. So we have over 50 equations or functions available for you to use. Let's go ahead and take a look at some. So I have a sample template already that I opened. Let's go ahead and bring that up. And it opened on my other screen, so let me slide it over. All right, so here we're just going to add a sum function to create a total of the sales amount for all the salespeople. And you can see here that I just have a sales table. I have a sales for each loop. I have a couple alt tags, one salesperson, call number, leads generated, and sales amount. Before we do anything further, let's just go ahead and look at the data. Now that we see how it's made up, let's look at the data to see what we're actually working with. In the auto tag tab, let's click preview. All right, so we're getting from this sales loop everything that we're looking to display. We got the salesperson, the call numbers, lead generated, and the sales amount. Okay, so we're just bringing back everything we're going to display. Okay, so before we add the sum function that I was just talking about, I want to show you conditional formatting. I want to show you how to display red text for those salespeople that are not meeting their quota. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this sales amount alt tag right here and open up the tag editor. I'm going to expand this var1 variable over here in the data tree pane. And this var1 variable, it's just relating to our sales loop and all the data that we can use. So I'm going to open up the Properties tab. And now in this tag section, there's this condition field. And it's already set up for us right here. To the right, you'll notice these ellipses at the end of the line. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And this this will open up our conditional formatting rule manager. Okay, so whenever you add an equation or whenever you want to evaluate data, you'll want to begin with an equal sign. Here we have an equal sign, and then we have our dollar sign, squiggly bracket, var name, var1, which is just referring to our sales loop. And within that, we're looking at our sales amount. And we're checking, is that sales amount less than 8,000? Now that we have this equation built, what if we want to format the output in a certain way? Now, if I know the formatting code, I can add the syntax in this format field. If I don't, that's okay. I can come over here and click on the wizard button, which opens up our format options. And here I have a whole bunch of different options. I can format the text by italicizing it, bolding it, underlining it, strike through in it. I can change the color of the background. And since we're working with tables, we also have format options for the cells. I can format the line style, the line color, the cell color, can change the format. But for this example, we're just going to change the color of the text to red for those sales amounts that are less than $8,000. So here we've already entered in the hex code for the color red. Unfortunately, we don't have a color palette right now. That's something we want to add as an option. But for now, you would have to enter in the hex code. Here, 2 F's and 4 zeros represent the color red. Now, if you have specific colors that you need to use, you could Google that, the hex code of the colors, or speak with your marketing team to get the actual hex code. Right now, you would just have to enter it in. With that entered, and all we want to just do is change the color. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then here's our formatting right here. We could also add a new rule if we wanted to. We could delete a rule. But as this is all that we want to do, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I'm going to save the tag. Let's go ahead and generate the output so you can see what it looks like. Yes to save. Okay, I'm going to turn off the show hide formatting. It's not needed right now. So you can see any sales amount that is less than $8,000 is now displayed in red. So this is just one way to conditionally format an alt tag for output. I'm going to close this now. All right, now let's go ahead and add a sum function to this template. So what if we want to total all the sales amounts within this table? How do we do that? Well, we'll need to create a new row in our table just underneath this first row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this end for each loop, end for each tag, and delete it. Now I'm going to go ahead and add another row. Click on this plus sign to add that second row. Okay, we're now going to do what I told you not to do earlier when it comes to row-based templates. And that is, and this is a row-based template as we're going to be moving top down. And what I'm going to do is add the end for each tag inside the table. So I'm going to place my cursor right here. And I'm going to go up to the tags. I'm going to add the end for each. Okay. Next thing I want to do is I want to give this, what we're going to be doing, a descriptive name. So since we'll be working with the totals, let's go ahead and add total here. I'm going to format this a little, make it stand out a little. And go up to the Home tab and make this bold. And let's right align it. Okay. Now let's add now let's add an alt tag for the sales amount total. So if I cursor right here into the sales amount, because we're totaling this, go to the Auto Tag tab and add an alt tag. All right, now that the alt tag's there, I'm going to go ahead and double click it to open the tag editor. So we're going to be adding the sum function. So I'm going to click on this wizard button because that's where the functions are located. And this opens up our insert function window. And here we can select the category. We can select all, date and time, math and trig, statistical, database, text, logical. As we're working with the sum function, it's going to be under the math and trig. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And that just shortens down the list, just displaying the functions associated with this category. If we add all, we would be seeing them all. Alphabetical order, so sum is down here at the end. So when you click on it, you do have a little description right here where the sum function adds all the numbers in a range of values. Okay, I'll go ahead and click OK. And this opens up our function arguments window. And here's our equation. And if, as I mentioned earlier, you'll want to start with an equal sign to evaluate, which it has done for us. And then there's our sum function with nothing between these parentheses. So let's go ahead and add to this equation. What are we going to sum up? Well, we can enter what we're going to sum up in this number 1 field. If you're not sure of it, you can always go ahead and click on this wizard button. And then this will open up our SQL wizard. So we want to sum up the sales amount. So I'm going to go ahead and expand the tables and then the sales table as we're looking for the sales amount here. So we want to take the sales amount and just total it up. So to do that, all you have to do is highlight the sales amount, drag it to the columns section in the middle. And as we do that, over here in the data preview pane, you'll notice that we have all our sales amounts, just exactly what we want to sum up. So that's all you need to do is drag the sales amount into the columns. With that done, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. All right, you'll now notice that we have a number to the right of this number 1 field. This is the first value that's being returned. And there's also a grand total down here, not formatted, but the grand total of all the sales amounts. See, now you can see our sum function has data in it. So we're selecting from the sales table all of the sales amounts. So exactly what we want to see. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now here is our query that we built through the equation editor in the query tab right here. I'll go ahead and save the tag. And now since we're going to print out a number value, let's go ahead and format the data. So with this alt tag selected, I'm going to come up here and click on the Format Data button. Now, just like in Excel, we can click on currency. We want 2 decimal places, yep, negative numbers, okay. So this is the formatting this is the way we want our sales amount to look, the formatting we want applied. So I'm going to go ahead and click Apply. and then close. Well, let's just go ahead and bold this like we did the total to help make it stand out a little better. So to make sure we're bolding all of this tag, I'm going to come up here and click on this Select Tag button, which highlights it all. Now I'm going to come over and I'm going to make it bold, just like that. All right, now when we click Output, see what it looks like. All right, so here's our table now with our extra row. Since we've added the ForEach tag within the table, it's given us this blank row. But we utilize that blank row by adding the grand total for the sales amounts. So this is, I feel, a great example for showing you how to conditionally format the text for certain values, and also adding a sum function, which is just one of the many functions within the equation editor that you can utilize. All right, I'll go ahead and close this. Let's see that we're running on time. I've got a couple more things I want to cover. We'll probably finish up right around the top of the hour. So let's go back to our samples. Let's look at another one now. So click on the samples button. Now I want to show you conditionally formatting using if tags and switch case tags. So I want to open up the if tag tutorial, which is right here, first row, fifth column. And again, this will give you step-by-step instructions on how to utilize the if tag. So right now, let's go ahead and look at this first example here, the if, out, end if tag. Now, the if tag is perfect when you want to show or hide specific elements within your template based on some condition within your data. So I'm going to go ahead and select this first if tag. And what is it going to evaluate? So this first if tag is to evaluate what's the condition, the query that's set up in it. And if it's true, then it's going to display everything between this beginning and ending if tag, which is just this out tag right now. If this if tag evaluated to false, it would skip over all of this, and then because there is nothing to display if this is false, and it's going to just carry on until the next line. Let's just go ahead and take a look at a preview of this if tag. See what data are we actually evaluating here. So in this if tag, we're evaluating is 1 less than 2. This is a very simple evaluation. Yours obviously will be much more robust, but this is a simple one. So since 1 is less than 2, it's going to return true. So this means that we're going to display this out tag. If it was false, it would just skip over the out tag and go on to the next thing after the end ForEach tag. Now let's look at this out tag, see what it's going to display. Since this is true, so this is just going to display 1 is less than 2. Exactly what it is. Let's go ahead and output this so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so over here in the blue text, for this if condition, we are simply displaying 1 is less than 2. Okay, let's take a look at this next example. The output right here is indicating that 3 is less than or equal to 4. So why is this showing? Let's go ahead and preview this if tag. So all we're doing here is evaluating if 3 is greater than 4. Of course, 3 is not greater than 4, so it evaluates the false. Okay, since this first if tag is evaluating to false, Report Designer is going to skip over this first out tag and move to this else tag. And then it will provide everything after this else tag to this ending if tag. Right now, it's just a simple out tag, but it could be used to show or hide more information based on, let's see, example, some states need more information. As an example, California needs to display more information than some other states at times. So this could be used, this else could be used that if the state is California, then display additional information. So it doesn't matter what comes between the if, else, and if tags. So let's go ahead and preview this out tag since this if tag evaluates to false. And here we're just going to be displaying 3 is less than or equal to 4. And that is exactly what we see here in our output. So if this if tag was to evaluate to true, it would display this out tag. Let's go ahead and take a look at what it's saying. 3 is greater than 4. So that's the if tag. You'll want to use the if tag if you have just 1 or 2 conditions or choices that you want to evaluate. But if you have 3 or more conditions that you want to evaluate, you could use nested if tags, which we see right here on the example beneath it. We have an if tag, an else tag, another if tag, else, and then a couple of end if tags. But we would actually suggest using the switch case tags. Let's go ahead and take a look at the example we have for switch case tags. So I'm going to go back to our samples button, open up the Getting Started guide. There's a couple of switch tags. Right here, switch tag and switch tag 2. I'm going to go ahead and open up this second one. Gives us more information. So here we have another table containing customer information. Let's go ahead and preview the customer for each loop to see the data we're working with. So here we're returning customer ID, first name, last name, whole bunch of information. And then we're going to be displaying first name, we're going to display the last name, the address, the city, state, postal code. This country column, this is where we have added our switch tags. And all a switch tag does is it just tells Report Designer when to start evaluating case tags. So here we have our beginning switch tag and our ending switch tag, and then within it is a bunch of case tags. Now these, switch tags. So switch tags, case tags. Now the switch tag right here is just a little darker than these case tags. That's another way you could tell the difference. So what's happening here? These case tags are evaluating the country. So if it belongs to Canada, then this Canadian flag will be displayed. Let's look at the value that we're evaluating here. I'm going to double click that to open the tag editor. So we have our equal sign. And then we have the $ squiggly bracket. We have var name 1, and this is just referring to this customers for each loop. And we want to look at the country region name for our customer loop and check if it equals Canada. If it does, we want to display the Canadian flag. Okay, we'll then do this for the rest of the countries. And we'll check, does the country region name equal USA? If it does, display the American flag. We'll check if it's the country region name is Mexico, display the Mexican flag, and Australia, display the Australian flag. And then if it equals just one, if one of these case statements does equal true, it'll show that flag, and then it will exit the switch. So as soon as it just meets one of the cases, it displays and then exits the switch, and then it'll move on to the next item in the list, in the customer's list, display a first name, last name all the way through, and then it'll evaluate the country region name again and display the appropriate flag. So let's look at the output to see what's just going to show us. Split the screen. Okay, so the first record here is John Yang, and they're from Australia. They're in Australia right now, so their country is going to display the Australian flag. We can scroll down and we can see Lon Walker from Washington State in America, so the American flag. And you can see we got British Columbia, Canadian flags, and so forth. So this is how you can evaluate more than two things. Oh, I have one more question. Let me just look at that quickly. How are the pictures tied to the case tag? Okay, good question. So they're tied. Let me open up the tag editor. So what's happening here is here we have the switch statement and the end switch statement. Within here are our 4 case statements that we're evaluating. This first case statement is saying, does this country region for the record that we're looking on for var name 1, which is in this customer loop, equal Canada? If it does, what it will do is it's going to display everything after this Canada case tag. All we have set up right now is just an image of a flag. So this is actually how we tie this flag to this switch, to this case tag. Here's the case tag, here's the value. That's all the value for this. Move on to the next case tag. Here's the case, here's the value. So we got the case tag, the value, and then the next case tag will start the new thing to display. Okay, I think you just got it with that explanation. And as this last Australian flag, there is no case tag after it. It comes to the switch, and that's how it ends. So, okay, good question. So just here, we were evaluating 4 case tags. So there's 4 questions and conditions that we're asking to show or hide these certain values based on the customer's country. All right, I have one last thing to show you. This will go quickly. So let's go back to our samples, and I want to show you the input tag sample. We have a bunch of 3 of them, but I want to focus on this one right here, as it gives us a little of everything. So this it looks like we're just going to be importing an image here. We're going to import a PDF. We're going to import a docx, text file, txt file, also a HTML page. So these are the things that we're working on importing in this sample. Let's go ahead and generate the output so you can see what it looks like. Okay, split the screen. All right, so here, first thing, we have a bitmap image that we're importing. We actually are importing this. This is a tag in the template. What you see here is just an image preview. If I was to double click on this, you'll see that we are pulling in an image from an image called Windward 2 PNG. But this is just an image preview. We are actually pulling in this image. You may notice that here is importing a PDF file section with the PDF, but there is none. Right after that, importing another template is right there. So we are actually not importing the PDF here. And so the only way that you can actually import a PDF is to output to PDF. So if this was if this output was PDF as opposed to docx, you would see this PDF import right here. And then we're just going to be importing the rest of the information. So that's the two main things I wanted to show you on this. In order to, if you want to import PDF, you must output to PDF. And also, if you're importing an image, we do have an image preview for you. All right, let me just go back to the slide. Sorry, I went over. I just want to make sure we covered everything. Okay, I showed you the if tag and how to evaluate when it's true, and that it shows everything between the beginning and ending if tags. Switch case tags showed you that if you have multiple evaluations or conditions that you're trying to check against, say 3 or more, it's best to use the switch case tags. All right, you may want to take a screenshot of this page while we're on it. It contains a lot of useful information. So if you want to look up anything from our knowledge base, you can do this at wiki.windward.net. We're constantly updating the wiki. We're actually revamping it entirely right now. We're slowly putting out some pages, but you will see a brand new wiki, hopefully better in the future. If you can't find what you're looking for, you can always reach out to our amazing support team at support.windward.net, or you could also email them at support@windwardstudios.com. So if you have a question that you can't find the answer to, go ahead and just contact our support team and we'll be glad to help you. If you need to retrieve your license keys, you can do that at store.windward.net. And if you want any changes or have any feature requests that you want added to the engine or to Report Designer, you can do this at ideas.windward.net. I do see a couple more questions answered, questions asked. So let's go ahead and do that because we're coming right up to the Q&A session anyways. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to keep this open just in case you need to take notes of any of these. Yeah, I have a question. Is it possible to ask you a specific question regarding an issue? Yeah, yes, you can. I can either answer that for you right now, or if you like, I can go ahead and we can create a ticket for you after this, and we can work on that through the ticketing system. I believe I have your email, so I can reach out to you, but let's see. Oh, being backwards. Oh, the list being backwards. Yeah, we can definitely. So the question was, so they're looping through a ForEach tag and displaying a list of records. That list is probably going in descending order as opposed to ascending order. Just was curious how to switch that around. You're using XML. If you don't mind hanging on, I can try to create something quickly just to give you an idea. This may help you. If not, we can definitely talk about this afterwards, but I'll show you just setting up order, or you may have already went through this, but let me just quickly demonstrate this. Just gonna create a new one. Web. Okay, just to make sure it has a unique name. Let's see, Northwind. Okay, test this. Okay, so here it's added, XML. Okay, good. Got a auto tag bin, data bin. Let's go ahead and create a quick for each loop. Let's use employees. Let's do an alt tag. And let's go ahead and do the end for each. Let's go ahead and open this up. So I'm double clicking that alt tag that I entered. Okay, just sorry, keep on reading the updates. Okay, so again, I hope this answers your question. If not, it may be something more involved and we can work on that afterwards. But just to discuss simply how to change order. So I'm gonna go ahead and create, let's use the wizard. So here, I'm going to use the XPath wizard to create my query. I just click that right there. Okay, I'm going to add a node. We're using the employees table, so let's go ahead and just display the first name. Okay, so what we want is a list of all first names. So let's save this, output it just to see how it looks. It's going to ask me to save it. Let's just come up with something quickly. All right. So here's a list. Your list is probably going descending order. This is just the way that we're getting the data from the XML data source. It's in no order. Here you can see Nancy, Andrew, Janet. So if I go back into this alt tag, go back to the wizard, here I can use this add an order by, and we only have one thing that we're working with, so I'm going to select that. So we're going to order by the first name. Here I have the option to change it from ascending to descending. We want to go in ascending order, so let's choose that. When I click OK, here you can see the query that's made. If I go back here and I do change this to descending, you can now see it's ordering by descending. So ascending is how it defaults on the order. Descending is how you would have to actually enter descending here in the query or use the wizard to change the order. But if I now save this and output, and I get something that I'm not expecting. Not sure why that didn't turn out right. Yeah, usually we would just see Nancy, and I don't normally see this order by descending. Some reason, I'm sorry, this was an example to show you, but it's not working well. I'll take a look at this off screen, but if you would like to talk about this further, we can discuss this. Yes. Yep. Yeah, that is true. It's all you need to do is add descending, and that should just reverse the order. By default, without descending, it's without descending, it's ascending. Yes. So sorry this example didn't work. I'm not sure why, but seems like got the answer you're looking for. Good question. Great question. Thank you. I don't see anything else at the moment. So I know, yeah, actually not the only one here. Just you, okay. All right, well, I hope you guys have got some good information out of this. We're always there in support if you need us for any questions or help or with anything. Well, I thank you very much for joining today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and goodbye now. Okay, have a good time. Have a good day, everyone. Bye now.